I have Scott Skillman, who is a successful Vistage Chair working with dynamic leaders, and I've got Ross Hartman, who is the founder of Kiingo AI and an AI expert helping businesses across the country embed his brain into their company to help with AI. So we're going to get into the weeds here and find out exactly the tools, the strategies that business owners are using, can use to help AI integrate with the business. Let's go check it out. Hi, everybody. This is Paul Hitchcock, founder and president of Giant Jaxx Media. We help others to grow their business. Thanks for jumping on Giant TV. Really excited for my guest today. I have Ross Hartman, who is the founder of Kiingo AI, a Vistage speaker in high demand everywhere. And I've got Scott Skillman, who's a very successful Vistage chair in Florida, doing some amazing things there. Welcome, both of you.
Thanks so much for having me, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is obviously a hot topic, AI. It's just going insane everywhere. And Scott, I want to start with you and jump in to understand a bit about your Vistage practice, what you're doing there, what you're building, some industries you're focused on. Any thoughts about AI that may be coming up with you? And then we'll get into Ross and get into the weeds a bit.
Sure. So, I moved back to the Northeast Florida area, the Jacksonville area, about a year ago. I had been out in San Diego for many years, where I had been a Vistage member for about 3.5 years. Then I became a Vistage chair, and I had 4 groups in San Diego for several years. I've since moved on from there back here to Jacksonville, where I'm just launching my first group. Within the group, I've got people associated with wealth management, large construction, software companies, HVAC companies, business magazines, distribution companies, and fire protection and security companies. So it's quite a wide variety, and I've got slots available for several. I've got obviously I can do more tech companies, but the healthcare, the manufacturing side, retail side. So there's an abundance of opportunity for me to fill into the group. The one thing that I am seeing across the board with CEOs when it comes to AI is they are trying to figure out, how will it be an opportunity, but how will it be a threat? And yet they're not fully engaged in rolling it out, because they don't know exactly what it can and can't do. So hopefully we can get some understanding of that today. Okay, Ross?
Yeah, no, awesome. And I know, Scott, so what's great about what you're doing there is you're getting together monthly with your people, processing issues, talking about all that stuff, highly collaborative, which I think is awesome. And you're also doing one-to-ones, which I know you enjoy too.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, Ross, if you would, give us a little background about what you're doing, and then maybe we could swap some questions back and forth if possible.
Yeah, I love that. So, what I'm doing is I'm working with companies to, first of all, determine where can AI actually help you. So we do this kind of AI opportunities report, where we come and learn a little bit about the company and how AI can be in sort of put into the company to help with different roles and different tasks. And, like I say, most of the time, every company is unique in their industry, has specific use cases where AI can apply. But every company has a lot of commonalities in it. We all have financial needs and legal needs and accounting needs, and you can put AI into those areas as well. So after we do that, then we tend to help companies with the actual integration. So how can we get AI actually into your organization? And then that will depend on what level of security you need, what kind of technical specification or technical sophistication you have. And so that can range from just setting up the ability to use ChatGPT on a daily basis to deploying a model on your network so it's completely secure and no data is getting outside of your virtual network.
Great. And then, right now, you mentioned Chat GPT. So, this is a long race. And so Chat GPT is sort of the pace setter today. But what do you really see happening in the long run? Is it going to be the big players that are dropping billions in? Is it going to bifurcate because you're going to have different types of AI for writing or video or audio or coding? Give us a little bit about that.
I love this question. Okay. So first of all, in the short term, what we're going to see is a new model from Google called Google Gemini. And I believe they're hoping to release it around December. They say it's going to be better than GPT-4. And it sounds like you already know OpenAI's GPT-4 is currently top of the line, state of the art. Nothing else beats it yet. But if Gemini can beat that, that will be the new pace setter, like you say. Now, that's kind of in the short term. But what we're going to see in the long term, and this really is sort of we're not entirely sure, but there's kind of one or two ways that people think this is going to go. One is the foundation model route, and that's where we have these giant models that are what are called multimodal, and they can upload images or audio or text, and they can understand all of that, and then they're able to handle pretty much anything you put in as just one monolithic unit. And this is the idea of artificial general intelligence, AGI, or that's part of the theory. Now, the other route that it could go is where you have, and I think you were kind of alluding to this, we might have smaller models, and companies will interact with these small models on the specific task that they're doing, with the hope that each small model will be able to be fine-tuned for the specific task, and you'll be able to get better results than if you did a foundation model. Amazon is taking this bet with their service called AWS Bedrock, but then they've also sort of started to go towards the monolithic route as well. They invested $4 billion in Anthropic, which creates a model called Claude, about 2 weeks ago. So I think the answer is we don't entirely know, but we're definitely going to get more into these large models that are multimodal and that are able to do things more autonomously.
And so then, quite often what happens is CEOs hear about it, but they're not going to be the people that are really delving into it. They just have to get smarter about it. How would you suggest or recommend to people running companies to get their organization engaged so they can figure out how to use it?
Yeah, this is a really good question. So first thing I'll say is that I think AI is almost comparable to the release of the computer. And I mean that in that it is a complete paradigm shift in how we access and deal with data. So yes, it may not be something that CEOs need to heavily use on a day-to-day basis, but it is an informational tool. And so I think it can be valuable to anyone and everyone to understand that this is sort of the new computer and it will change how we interact. So you definitely want to just get comfortable with using it on a general basis. But your question of how do we get maybe folks who are using this on a day-to-day basis to feel better about it? Well, some companies go about this and they come on in and they say, here's AI, it's going to make you more efficient, 30% more efficient. It's going to make you happier. Here, take it and use it. And, you tend to see a lot of pushback in that case because in our, collective consciousness, we have this idea that AI is going to totally replace our jobs. We have this idea that it's going to rise up and kill us all, right? This Terminator type feeling. I don't believe that that's going to be the future that we're going to see. But where we can get better sort of buy-in for the technology is if we go to folks and say, okay, where do you not enjoy doing what you're doing? What would you like to automate? What is painful? What takes a long time? Where's the quality not high enough? And have them recommend or suggest areas they'd like to automate. Then you can fit AI in to those specific tasks. So they get to continue doing the parts of the jobs that they enjoy doing, that are creative, that are engaging. Then you reduce employee turnover, and then you can have the AI start to automate those repetitive tasks.
So what about the concept of, are they going to be using internal data to become more efficient, or are they going to use external data to become more efficient?
Yeah, this is the key question. So, when you use ChatGPT, for instance, it's incredibly valuable, but I'd say after a couple hours or even sooner than that, you start to notice, well, this would be so much more valuable if I could tie it to my data and start to take some real action and ask, what were our sales numbers last week? Or what happened in that meeting last week? Or what's our policy and procedure on this? And so that's something that our company does, Kiingo AI. We tie the AI to your company's data. And so that does a couple of things. One, it allows for easy retrieval of data. I came across this statistic that 2.5 hours a day on average are spent by the average knowledge worker just trying to find information, which is absolutely insane, if you ask me, that much time is, so that's nearly 30% of someone's workday. So if you can reduce that to a matter of minutes, you can save massive time. But then once you tie AI to someone's data, to a company's data, you're also allowing for workflow automation. But you're also, of course, and you're also allowing for data insights. So you can have the AI start to extrapolate your financial data, start to detect anomalies in your inventory data, your maintenance information, your advertising and your clicks per, or your click-through rate, those kinds of things. So we're talking about automation, talking about data insights, and talking about data retrieval. That's what we're really going to see a massive improvement on when you start tying AI to your company data.
So some of the traditionalists, it's very interesting. You hear them say, well, AI is not new. It started with machine learning 20 years ago, and then it went to, optimization and data warehousing and all of that. Is this really an inflection point, or is this just the new 3.0 version?
I love it. Okay, this is such a great question, because sometimes when I do talk about AI, people think this just happened in the last year. But like you're saying, AI has been around a long time. I mean, industry has been using AI for the last few decades even. It's been in our computer systems to, like you say, optimize, to find statistical patterns, to categorize. And here's where it's different. This wave that we've been seeing in the last year or a couple of years is called generative AI, and it's the ability for AI to create human-like content. Now, part of that, what that really does is it makes AI far more accessible. So in the past, when you wanted to have a machine learning model, you wanted to be able to access your data through AI, you needed to hire some data scientists, you needed to hire a machine learning engineer, or you needed to have some sort of consultancy come in. But now you can tie the AI to your data, and it's a more generalized system. So it's able to extract insights, create reports, answer questions, find patterns, and do those things in a way where you don't have to be technically knowledgeable. The AI itself is able to steer that sort of interaction. And so in that way, it is a bit of a paradigm shift. We are really moving more toward this general intelligence rather than needing specific specialized models for finding statistical patterns.
A lot of questions about the fear side, the hallucinations that come out, or you read about the different authors that are filing suit because they feel like their writing style is being taken over illegally. So what do you have to say about those that worry, and what do we do about it?
Yeah, I can absolutely understand the concern, because taking a step back here and thinking about how AI works, or I should say the most recent versions of AI, you take as much data as you can, you put it into the AI model, and you ask it to find patterns. So when we're talking about image models, for instance, it takes in images that may have been copyrighted or may just be intrinsically copyrighted, and it learns those artistic styles, for instance, and is able to reproduce content in that style. Now, there's kind of two philosophical pieces to this. One is, well, that's clearly stealing copyright, right? You're taking someone's style and you're recreating it, or you're even being inspired by their pieces of art. And then the other flip side to that argument is, well, humans do roughly the same. They view the artwork of their inspirations, and they, create art that is inspired by that. Now, this obviously becomes a gray area, because humans typically are not able to reproduce it so faithfully, the style, to what it originally was. And they're not able to reproduce it so quickly. So, where we're going to see this go, I honestly don't know. This is such a highly litigated area. I will tell you that a lot of the AI model companies are very aware of this and are starting to be far more conscientious about this, because they obviously don't want to be sued. Adobe, their recent model, so Firefly and Firefly 2, it was trained on art that they have the rights to. So they've bought the rights to it, which means that in theory, they have the total rights to any output of the AI, or I should say that no one is going to sue them for the output of their AI. In theory, again, this is highly litigated, so we'll see what actually happens. But that's the direction that things are going, is these model companies are starting to first get the rights for the data that they train on. And in the case of Firefly 2, they actually paid the artists that were used to train the model. So really important and good questions, and stuff that's still not totally settled.
How are we going to dance through the difference between data facts and data opinions?
I mean, this is a really good and difficult question, because I don't think we've even fully grappled with this in the context of social media. We have had social media for, decade plus now. And with that, we have not been able to truly differentiate between fact and fiction. And that becomes, I think, even more difficult with AI. Because, so for instance, OpenAI had a service that would allow you to put in text and to be able to say, is this created by an AI or a machine or a human? And they took it down. And the reason they took it down is they said it's not 100% reliable. In other words, there could be false positives, there could be false negatives. There is no reliable way to tell the difference between AI generated and human generated. And like you said, we don't know when, well, it's tough to recognize when AI is hallucinating. And so it's very possible that it makes something up, and that it is incredibly hard to recognize that unless you're already a subject matter expert. And so it's tough. I don't know what the dance is. We almost need something like that Google Knowledge Graph that can start to verify data. We almost need a database of what's true and what's false. But, of course, this gets a little more philosophical, because not even humans can totally agree on what's true and what's false. So it's a difficult issue.
Where do you see the ownership of it inside of companies? Because is it an IT software? Is it an operational excellence industrial engineer? Is it the marketing team? There's going to be so many different aspects, but somebody still has to own, the platform, product, process, procedure.
Yeah, such a great point. So first of all, I'll say, just speaking on the budgetary side, how do you budget for AI? I'll say most people's initial reaction is we put it under IT. Of course, it's under the IT budget. A lot of companies, though, have actually been taking this out of their hiring budget instead of their IT budget, because it is a labor efficiency tool, essentially. Now, when you talk about where it practically is deployed and kind of who owns it, I do think IT makes the most sense, just because there is technical sophistication required to keep it updated and to maintain it. But when we're talking about ownership, not from a technical standpoint, but from a truly who is using this and who's responsible for this, it is a much wider company responsibility. Because I think it's a mistake to think of this technology as just an IT tool that we can use for efficiency. This is a new computer that sits on your desk that everybody uses. Every single employee in the company is responsible for using this as a tool to extract new information, to get data insights, to interact with their information. And so from that perspective, everybody has to learn how to use it. Everybody needs some feeling of ownership over it. At the end of the day, I do think it'll be IT.
So, one of the things that I think you'll see, if it truly is IT, is a lot of these operationally driven companies, you're basically now saying, no, IT is going to tell you how to do your business. You're just going to become the Sherpa and do it.
So this is a good point. And I think maybe I should clarify. I don't think IT should be responsible for how to interact with the AI or which instructions to give to the AI or even how to program the AI. And when I talk about programming it, I mean giving it instructions in English. And so from that perspective, I just mean IT is responsible for making sure that the system is up and running and doesn't go down. Now, to your point, like you say, every operation is going to have different needs. It is just like a computer. So, and I like to draw this kind of analogy here in that AI is responsible for, IT is responsible for making sure your computer works and stays on and you can function with it. But you are the one who directs it. You set the instructions, you do the operations on it. And so that's exactly the same with AI. And I want to also say there's this concept of a prompt with AI. A prompt is your question or your instruction. What do you want the AI to do? Now, every different department, section of the organization is going to be responsible for having their own prompt library, which is where we start to instruct the AI about how to perform our specific tasks. And they'll be responsible for administering those prompts, updating them, and using them on a daily basis.
What do you see as the difference between how blue collar workers will be impacted and white collar workers will be impacted?
This is a really good question. So with this wave, so I can say, going back, I think the central conception was that robots are going to come in, AI is going to come in, it's going to automate all the blue collar jobs, right? That was the thought. Creativity will be the last thing to go. We'll always need folks who are going to need to think strategically and really get in there on the human mind, because that's the hardest part. Interestingly enough, and counterintuitively, we're almost seeing the reverse, that actually physical work is incredibly difficult to do, to embody software in the physical world that can do the calculations to interact with our world, incredibly hard. Robotics is still behind at the moment, behind general AI. And so we are seeing that this is going to affect white collar work far sooner than blue collar work. And I think more drastically. And I do think that is a sort of counterintuitive finding, but that's where we're going at the moment.
Interesting.
And which do you see being focused on at the beginning? Is it going to be process improvement or optimization?
So my natural instinct is both, but I'll say the thing that is probably easiest to do is optimization. And if we kind of think of that as efficiency, essentially, and there was this study that came out from the Boston Consulting Group recently, and the stats, there's roughly that the folks who use GPT-4 got 12.1% more tasks done, got something like 25% more tasks, completed 25% quicker, and did 40% higher quality work. And those numbers are roughly accurate. I'll have to go back and check. But that essentially just means by having AI on your screen, you can increase your labor efficiency just by using it, saying, summarize this, help me work through this problem, research this for me. So doing those sorts of things without needing any workflow automation can already get you a massive process, or I should say efficiency improvement. That's where I think we'll see it first.
So a lot of the technological changes over the last several years, of course, have this tendency to be embraced and addressed by the younger generations, right? So it's not your baby boomers, it's not your Gen X, it's your millennials and Gen Zs. With this advent of AI, are we going to see that next generation being the ones who are embracing it, or is this going to actually crawl up to the older generations of, say, the Gen X, because it's going to be mandatory in order to do your job?
I do think to a certain extent, it's like you say, going to be almost mandatory. There's this phrase that goes around the AI community that AI will not replace you, but someone using AI will. And I think that tends to resonate with folks. It's almost like if somebody comes in and can use AI to be 10 times more efficient, they obviously have their choice in the labor market on what they want to do. It's just the same as, you can hire 10 accountants to do their work on an abacus, or you can hire one accountant to do your work on a computer. And I'm sure the ratio is actually significantly different than that. But it's almost roughly the same with the AI. Yes, I believe the new generation will be able to use it, but everyone else will have to learn how to use it too. And the final thing I want to say on that is, it's not crazy difficult to use. Some people think that you need some magic secret sauce to talk to the AI. My recommendation is always just talk to it like it's a human. Recognize that it's an intern. You still have to check its work, but just be open and honest and give context and give all the information you can.
Great.
I love it. I love it. Great stuff. We're hitting a wall here time-wise. We could talk about this forever. Scott, incredible questions.
Yeah.
Ross, thank you for that. And I want to, with everybody watching this, wherever you're watching it, because we stream it everywhere, get connected to these two gentlemen. Their contact information is around this video. Find out what Scott's doing with his Vistage groups, and Ross as well as his thumb on the pulse of what's going on in AI. Of course, thank you, gentlemen, both for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
the
you,
time,
Scott.
Paul. Thanks. Thank you, Ross.
Great questions.
All right.